time for us to put aside all of these things that's going on and to love on each other and to show each other, I won't let you fall and don't let me fall.
Not because of my skin, you wanna judge me with it. Take a look at my face, don't get scared by the race.
Judged by his cover you won't understand. Those who knew a gentle giant of a man. He had a mother and he was a dad. Desired things that every single human ought to have. Made some bad decisions but he did his time. Moved up north to find a better way of life. All he ever wanted was to make ends meet. After all, isn't that the same as you and me? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Help me, please. I can't breathe. No weapon, just an alleged phony bill. Still wound up face down, knee on his neck, crying out to his dead mama, help me, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Help me, please. I can't breathe.
Oh hey, take those chains off my hands. I'm not gonna die today. Is it the color of my skin? Haven't you treated me this way? Let me breathe. I'm begging you, please. I wanna breathe. Just let me breathe. Not because of my skin, rights, and you wanna judge me with racism. Take a look at my face. I love we are dealing. Don't get scared by the race. I love we are dealing.
I judge not by your skin, but by who you are within. Take a look at your face. I'm not scared by your race.
Not gonna take this no more. Not gonna do this no more. Yes, I'm tired of this. We're so tired of this. Help me, please. Help me, please. Help me, please. Help me, please. Help me, please.
We can't
Stand up. Stand up.
We can't
Stand up. Stand up.
help us.
Stand up. Stand up.
We can't
Stand up. Stand up. We can't breathe.
Black,
We can't
white, brown, tall, skinny, short, it doesn't matter. One injustice, one place,
I can't
injustice in every place. And we gotta come together as a people.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath. And we want to just thank you for tuning in to part 2 of Black in America, hosted by the Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist Church here in Chicago by the AYS department. You guys know all that's been going on in the world today. And so we're here to hear from some young, beautiful Black women, their opinions and their thoughts about all that's going on in the world, because Black lives do matter. Black loves matter, and Black loss matters too, because it matters in the eyes of God, because we're all created in the image of God. We want to thank you for tuning in. We're really excited to get into the conversation tonight and to hear from these intellectual and creative women. But before we get into the discussion, we definitely want to open up with prayer to invite God into the discussion this afternoon. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to say thank you for allowing us to be alive amongst so much going on, for protecting us and keeping us. And I ask that you will open our minds so that we'll we're not just talking, but we're talking to uplift spirits and to open minds. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Amen. So what I want to do now is go ahead and introduce the panelists that will be speaking to us today. Then I want to introduce the creator of the video that we just watched. So first I want to introduce you all to Abere Wilson. She currently lives in the South Side of Chicago. And she grew up actually at the Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist Church, so she's no stranger to us. She also went to Shiloh Elementary School. She's a healthcare worker working on her LPN certification. She is a visual arts entrepreneur, photographer, and videographer. She is also attending, she attended the Lindblom Math and Science Academy for high school. I'm pretty sure I just butchered that name, but y'all are gonna forgive me. So give it up, you guys. I know we can't hear you, but introducing Abere Wilson first. Would you just wave to us, Abere? Thank you, thank you. We're excited to hear from you. We also want to introduce you to Kiara Cross. Kiara currently lives in Huntsville, Alabama. She also went to Shiloh Elementary School up until 5th grade, and she considers Shiloh to be her home church. She currently actually works for hospice in Huntsville, Alabama, and she went to the DuSable High School. Kiara, would you just wave to us so we know what you look like and who you are? Thanks for joining us for the discussion. Next, I want to introduce to you Gabrielle Nichols. She also lives right outside of Chicago in the suburb area. She has been to Shiloh plenty of times, and she has several friends who attend the church regularly as well. She currently goes to the greatest university in the world, Oakwood University. She is hailing from Oakwood, and she also graduated from high school here in Illinois. Would you wave to us, Gabrielle? Thank you so much for joining. We look forward to hearing from you. Last but not least, we have Sierra Barnes. She is currently living on the south side of Chicago. She also attended Shiloh School. Give it up for Christian education. Most of these women have gone through the Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist educational system, and that's no different for Sierra Barnes. She is currently in her junior year, I want to say, at the AE21 program. And she'll be able to talk to us a little bit more about her experience there. She is a security officer, and she also attended Shiloh from 9th grade to the 11th grade. And she also graduated from the John Hope College Preparatory School. Sierra Barnes, would you wave to us and let us know that you're here from the panel discussion tonight? All right, Sierra. So we're excited to get into the conversation, but before we get into the discussion about Black lives, I want to ask you, Abere, about the video that you created. It was moving, it was inspirational. We heard the words saying, "I can't breathe." What is it that inspired you to create that video in such a interesting time that the world is going through right now?
Well, when I was asked to do this video, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to portray, but my father and I took a drive around the city, and I decided that I wanted to remind others that Black people are still showing up for each other, whether that be creatively, in protest, or coming to support Black businesses, which is what I wanted to bring focus to in the video. So my contribution was this video. I wasn't able to show up at protest. I wasn't just physically able to do so, but I appreciated the opportunity to be able to contribute in this way.
Yeah, thank you. We definitely enjoyed it, and it gave us a good flavor to begin the panel discussion tonight. So much is going on in the world right now. In the midst of a global pandemic, we're also going through social unrest that was sparked by the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, as he got pretty much lynched in broad daylight by a white police officer. So what we want to know from you all today, number one, is what has been your experience, your personal experience with racism or police brutality? And I would encourage or open up the platform to Sierra or Kiara or Gabrielle first, since we've already heard from Abere. Any thoughts regarding that? Have you experienced anything personally that deals with racism here in America?
I'll go first. Personally, moving from Chicago, I wouldn't call myself being sheltered because my mother exposed me to a lot, just seeing the different views around Chicago. But moving down here was a little bit different. I did go to school. I attended Oakwood, but I didn't finish. So because I was working, I was throughout in the work world, like, and my mom's not here. So I had to be mindful of the things that I say. I knew off back because my first encounter working with other races, it really showed me on how much I had to watch what I said, because for one, I'm a Black woman, and how people view us is very ignorant and like disrespectful, like not knowing. So I had to be mindful and kind of learn how to work my way through the world without people trying to label me without me even saying anything. So that's living in Huntsville, Alabama. I have to be mindful being a Black young woman for sure, because I've seen people. What do I want to say? I've seen people, and it hasn't ended well as far as losing jobs, as far as low income people like living in certain places, being kicked out, all because of racism. I've seen it down here. I've had friends for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kiara. Anybody else have had any personal experiences with prejudice or racism?
I'll go. I think for me, to be Black in America, you're always aware of your Blackness. You know, like sometimes you may walk into a room and you're like, are there any other Black people here? You always, because you're a minority, sometimes you feel that in different areas and where you go. I remember one experience I had as a police officer. Sometimes you feel like you're being racially, discriminated against. You can't always tell specifically, but sometimes the questions that they ask. I remember the police officer pulled me over. He kept asking, do I have drugs in the car? Could he search the car? I said no. He said, can he bring a dog? I said yes. And there's many other situations where he was just like, oh, you're from this area, so you must fit this stereotype, And unfortunately, that's how some people view Black people, like you fit this stereotype. And that's because of history. History has pinged us as criminals and people who are barbaric and, many other different stereotypes that we don't fit, and that's because of the society that we live in, unfortunately. And that's my personal experience.
Thank you, Gabrielle. I think a lot of women and men can definitely relate to that, being profiled because of what we look like. So thank you for sharing your insight on that. I have another question for you ladies, because we're not just Black women, but we're Christian Black women. So one of the questions that I have for you today is, do you think getting involved in the fight for political change is merely political, or do you believe it is a spiritual discipline?
I'll go. I think there's a spiritual aspect to it, as I do with everything else around us, because at the end of the day, people need to look at themselves, and that's not something we've demanded people do, or they haven't been open to doing as of late. So when it comes down to the spiritual aspect of it, it's like, you know what? I need to look within myself. I serve a higher power, so how can I relay that and love to other people to get my message across? So I do think it's a spiritual battle for sure at the base of it, not just a physical one.
Right.
And I agree with what Abayre said. I feel like Satan uses race to divide us. He always has. He's always looking for a new way to kind of enter so that he can disrupt the peace. He wants everybody to be with him and not to go to heaven. And his way of doing that is to spread hatred instead of love. And that's where it comes from. Racism is hatred. It's not love. It's brutal, it's disrespect, and it goes far beyond, between the two of us. It's like spiritual warfare, I believe.
Yeah, and that's very powerful because if we think about it, the very first thing that Satan tried to attack was the family. In the Garden of Eden, he sought to separate and to destroy the union between Adam and Eve. And we know that police brutality is at the highest risk against Black men, right? Black men, and Black men are also obviously fathers. And so, you know, we're here today gathering on the eve of Father's Day. And so when we think about the fact that so many Black men are being killed, not just by criminals, but by the people who are supposed to enforce the law, what does that say to you in regards to the connection between social justice and the family life? Because women are, not just women, but little girls are now growing up without fathers, partly due to because police are taking their lives. What does that make you think about?
For me, that just makes me think about we need to have more of a sense of community. You know, we're already at a disadvantage because of what people call the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration that's happening, that's taken away a lot of our Black men and Black women and disrupted our households. And I feel from a spiritual perspective, you know, God loves family. Like he created family so that we could have union. You know, some of your closest friends are your family because you grew up with them so much time with them. And I think it's important for us to support and protect our Black men and our Black women, and to keep that in mind. You know, as Black people, sometimes we can be prejudiced ourselves. So sometimes we have to check ourselves and educate ourselves so that we don't, you know, stereotype ourselves or other people, you know?
Yeah, I like that. You said we need to check ourselves. It's easy to check everybody else, especially as church people. We can be checking everybody else, but God needs us to check ourselves. I have a question. We want to hear from you, Sierra, as well. So I'm going to direct this question to you. And my question is, have you seen the video of George Floyd's death? And if you did see it, what emotions did that bring up in you, Sierra?
I did see the video. I can honestly say I've never seen anything like it. I wasn't necessarily like shocked by it or anything, but it did like put me in a uneasy state of mind because at the end of the day, I just didn't understand why, specifically why this guy was treated the way he was treated, why he was put in the predicament that he was put in for so long. It just altogether just rubbed me the wrong way.
Anybody else want to share? How did you feel when you saw what happened in broad daylight? 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The police officer's knee was on his neck. What do you guys think about that?
I'll go. I saw the video, and I think what a lot of people would have you or Black people feel is hatred, or that's what they expect us to feel, and unmanaged anger. And that's not how I felt when I saw the video. I saw the video and the emotion, I had different emotions. I did have mixed emotions, but it was more so disappointment. It was sadness and things like that, because people, I don't know, I just wasn't upset. Like, this has been happening for so long. I'm not surprised, just like Sierra said, but it was more so a call to action. It's like, you know what, this needs to change. What's going to be the last action for us to be like, you know what, let's come together and do something about this as a people. So it wasn't of hatred, and I just felt like I needed to say that portion.
Right, and I really love what the both of you have just said and brought up. What you recently brought up, Abere, is that there's a lot of unmanaged anger. Is that what you said?
That's what I said, yeah.
Unmanaged anger. And so one of the other things that leads me to ask you all is that with all the young people experiencing so many different things, anger, confusion, disappointment, and even hopelessness during this time, because this has been going on for years, what would you say to the youth and to the young adults who are feeling disappointed, angry, and frustrated?
I'll go. I really don't know what to say to the young people because so much of it is happening and it's happening so fast. How they handle Blacks when they're getting arrested, or African Americans, I'm sorry, when they're getting arrested, it's really mind-boggling. And then to see them arrest another race, like now with all the protesting coming on, like I've seen that they have fake bullets shooting out to the crowds when they're arresting people, but they don't know how to take these type of precautions when they're arresting us. And that's what really throws me off. So I would tell the youth to just be very cautious. That's why I say you have to be cautious. And it's sad that you have to be so cautious, but you have to be, because you never know how the situation would unfold.
Yeah, and it's definitely a difficult thing. As Black young women and Black men, we're going through different things all at the same time. Number one, we're going through trauma. Our brothers and sisters are being killed by the hands of police. But then at the same time, we're being encouraged and pressured to take action, which we should, but it can be difficult to navigate that. So some people have resorted to rioting and to looting. Let's just be honest, we're angry. We have not been treated as equals for hundreds of years, and we're ready to throw some things, you know, we're ready to slash some tires. And so that's what's been going on around the country today. So what are your thoughts on looting and rioting? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts about that?
I'll go. I think it's an agree or disagree situation. For me, more it's I understand. So I think if we come at this with an understanding standpoint, you can open a discussion to move forward. I don't agree with charging forward as individuals, but as a collective and with strategy, change can happen. So I think if there's planning, instead of being reactive, because that rioting is reactive, instead of being reactive, if we could get individuals together, our people together as a collective, and strategically move forward to change what's going on, that can be better for all sides, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate just a little bit. I love what you said, that we need to be strategic about forming change and not just going out and doing whatever. But until we have strategy, what are we supposed to do? And anyone can answer this, you know, and that she brings up a good point that, you know, we have to be strategic about this, because number one, America was not built for us. It was built on the backs of us. So they're not looking out for our best interests. Let's keep that in mind. No matter how many things they post that say Black Lives Matter, we have to keep that in mind. But while we're waiting for more strategy, more organization, what do we do when they're killing our brothers, they're killing our fathers, they're killing our sisters?
What I would say, one thing I'm proud about the African American community, we are coming together. We all haven't came together, and that's where the strategy comes in, I guess, that Avera was talking about, because the fact that we came together, other races have came with us as a collective, and that's why I think it's so powerful now. Like, I can literally feel it. Like, I can feel the frustration. I can feel some things coming to the surface, like with different companies, like taking from our culture all these years. Like, it's just so sad. We just have to understand our power, because we are really coming up, coming stronger together. And I think that they are recognizing our strength, that we are recognizing our strength. And that's what I think, people are scared of, honestly, because we could have businesses, we can have things to give down to our generations, we can have so much, but the strategy has to be there for sure.
I love what you said, that we need to recognize our strength. And Kira, I'm just going to encourage you to likely pause your video and then restart it. It looks like it's frozen. And while you're doing that, ladies, what do you think is coming as a result of all these protests? And do you think that there is a positive change coming as a result of the protests?
I wanted to say that me, my personal view on it, I don't really feel like anything. I want to say positive. Sometimes, yeah, I feel like most of the time, no. But if you ask me, it seems like the protest only makes matters worse. But I feel like it just depends.
Yeah, and that's real. I love your honesty, Sierra. Gabrielle, I feel like you were gonna say something right before Sierra started.
I feel like the importance of protests is that it brings about a conversation that would have not been had unless the protest brought about that conversation. You know, for us, we've been seeing Black people shot down in the 12-year-old boys killed in the park, people getting killed while they're jogging, while they're in their homes, eating a bowl of ice cream, casual things that normal people do. Black people have been killed during that, and they're unarmed. They're not a threat whatsoever. But it was this one person, I don't remember who quoted it, but they said, it doesn't matter if we're unarmed. If they consistently see the color of our skin as a weapon, then they're always going to see us armed. And that's the problem, is that they see the shade of our skin as a weapon. And I think that the peaceful protests are very important to happen because it brings about conversation, not only in Black communities, but in white communities. You know, people are starting to check their prejudice, their discrimination, and sometimes the racism that's even in their own families. And as far as the looting that's going on, as a Christian woman, I believe it is super important and essential to speak up. What I don't agree with is that in the Bible, it's okay to be angry, but God says to in your anger to sin not. And there's many people who are taking advantage of the situation of looting by stealing, by lying, by being deceptive. And those are all things that break God's 10 commandments. And those are things that he doesn't want us to do. So if you are going to be sending a message, it's important to send the right message. And what Abere was saying about being strategic, I agree with that. Because when there's unity, there's no division. You know, I saw on social media when they were doing the protest in China, there was so many strategical plans that they did. You know, they would get on different trains, they would keep the protest short, so by the time the police got to the area, they were already gone. They were very strategic and smart, and also covering up their identity so that people didn't come later on to harm them, because that's what's happening to some of the protesters, is they're like showing up dead. And we know that that's because somebody didn't like their message and they're coming after them. So I think what we should do as Christians and as Black women and men is protect ourselves and send a message. And if you can't, you know, you can donate. There's other ways for you to share what the Black Lives Matter movement is about than just staying at home.
Yeah. You said a lot, and I love what you said, that of course, as Christian people, that God acknowledges that we will be angry and that it's okay to be angry, but he also encourages us to sin not. And so have any of you actually participated in some of the protests? You know, we're in Chicago. Chicago has been listed one of the top 5 cities in the nation who kill unarmed Black people by the hands of police. The police department and structure here in Chicago is corrupt, and of one of the most corrupt in the entire nation. So have you personally been involved with any protests or peace walks here in the city?
I've signed so many I've signed so many protests. I've signed, because I work I'm a frontline worker. What do I want to say? I don't want to say protest. What am I trying to?
You signed
petitions?
Petitions, that's what I want to say. I signed so many petitions, it's crazy. I've literally made up so many different emails. Like, it's crazy. And this way they taught me about so many other people that have died, like the Breonna Taylor, like her killers haven't been arrested, and that's crazy to me. And that lets me know it doesn't matter what walk of life we walk, like being frontline workers. That's what I say, working for America, like we have a say so, and it's crazy. Like, It doesn't matter who you are. Like, the police will just shoot, come into your house. Like, I don't understand that, how officers can come into someone's house, be mistaken of someone's identity and just kill them.
Right.
You know, it's really scary, but I'm really trying to do my part and donating as well, like $5, $10. I've done those things, and we think it doesn't go a long way, but it does help. So that's what I've done.
Thank you so much. There's so many ways to get involved with this fight against racial injustice. Protesting is just one of the many ways. You know, we saw Abera, she made a video. You can get creative to bring awareness to different people. And so you brought up an important name here. You said Breonna Taylor, right? And Breonna Taylor, she's critical because she was murdered by police while she was laying in her bed. Laying in her bed sleeping, and they came in and shot her. Now, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, their murderers have now been arrested. Praise God and thankfully. But so far, the one who murdered Breonna Taylor, he has only been arrested. When you found out that a Black woman, someone who looks just like you and has your same profile, was murdered while she was sleeping in her bed, how does that make you feel?
I honestly feel like that is one of the saddest stories I probably heard this year, specifically pertaining to a Black woman. If you ask me, she basically didn't get a chance, which is sad, and it actually hurts my heart. And even now, I mean, I can only imagine what her family could be going through if they had any way to like change it, or to the point where she would still be alive today. My heart really just goes out to them and her family.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Your thoughts on the death of Breonna Taylor?
I was gonna say it's really disheartening because it kind of shows you have no control over what's gonna happen to you in your life. Like being in your bed, that's like the most comfortable position you can be in. You know, you ended your day, you're in your bed, and you're done for the night. You know, you don't think you're gonna be awakened to people banging down your door and random shots being into your apartment or house. And I think it kind of shows us how fragile life is and how not to take it for granted, and also how unjust criminal justice is. You know, they can't even find the warrant that they supposedly had to be in her house at the first place. And for me, I don't know what the solution is. I feel like it may only get worse from here because I believe in end times. But I don't know. It's very, very disheartening because it literally could have been any one of us.
Right.
To add on to that, I think another emotion it's important to bring up is fear. It makes me fear, you know, it's not just a Black man's struggle. I think the misconception is that Black Lives Matter is a Black man struggle. Police brutality is focused on just the men. And this was a wake-up call. It's not just the men, it's the women as well. So it's all of us that have to unite. It's something that we all have to gather and decide, you know what, this has to change. It's not one-sided, it's multi-sided, it's multifaceted. So we have to look at not just one portion of it, but all of it. It's not just, oh, I'm attacking a Black man. It's Black people as a whole. Mm-hmm. So that brings us back to the whole unity, the unity aspect of it. So we all have to be on board with moving things forward and changing things.
Yeah, I love everything that you guys are saying. And Kiera, I see I'm going to give you a chance. I just want to invite everybody that's watching to join the conversation, join the chat. If you have something to say, let us know, and they will be able to get your comment to us so that we could likely discuss it. Kiera, did you have something to say before we move on?
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys remember Sandra Bland. Like, I feel like when I saw her video, like, we should have been said something a couple years ago. And all of these, like that video, because she had several videos. It took place when she got stopped for her tail light. Then we saw her in her cell, and I don't think that they were feeding her. And we have medical issues. We're not getting the attention we need. Like, and all this for just her light. I think they had broken her arm or her wrist or something. Like, it's hard being a Black female as well, for sure.
Something that you said earlier, Barry, was that, or if it wasn't a Barry, maybe it was Gabrielle. You guys can correct me, but one of you said that as long as police officers and white America as a whole sees us as a weapon, then we will continue to be profiled, murdered, and so on. My question to you is that, do you feel that it is also a problem that we are devalued, or is it mainly a problem that we have been weaponized because of our skin? Or do you think it's both?
I personally think it's both. I think when you look at the history of this country and then you see how Black people have been treated, Black people used to be treated in the medical field without anesthesia. They used to think our brains were smaller. They used to think so many horrible, untrue things about us. I feel like I said about the new Jim Crow, like, things have changed. Like, we're not physically in chains unless you're in prison, but like it's very similar to what it used to be. There's more enlightenment and openness, but I feel like as Black people, yes, we are undervalued and underappreciated.
We always haven't been viewed as a full human either. So I think that's important to bring up. So we 3/5 human, that's beyond me. Let me just say that's beyond me. So that doesn't just go away. I think that's another misconception. It doesn't just go away generations down the line. That's something that's fed into your children. It feeds into our education system. The police, what they were founded on, it feeds into that, their base. So it's not something that I think is easily changed. But now with the cameras coming out and we have social media and access to information, it seems like, it's this explosion of situations happening when it's not. It's just something that has not been changed, and it needs to.
Right. We are getting some comments, some input from the audience. Stanfield, would you go ahead and let us know what the audience is saying right now? We have a comment coming in.
So from Cassine70 on YouTube, she says a lot of the she says every time people of color express anything calmly or forcefully, we are criticized and demonized. White people were allowed to express themselves any way they want, AKA when they stormed a government building with AR-15s and guns because they couldn't open up their businesses and get haircuts. What do you all think about that kind of thing, and how, say, also Colin Kaepernick was criticized for kneeling during the national anthem, while, and that was a peaceful protest, and they told him he was wrong. Every time we try and protest, it's we're told how to protest.
I think that goes back to what Gabby was saying about others viewing us as a weapon, or skin tone as a weapon. If let's say they others they don't want to be held accountable. I think it's an accountability issue. If they don't view us as a weapon anymore, and now we are allowed to protest peacefully or express ourselves in any way we want to express ourselves, it's a threat. I've done something to your people, right? And you expect me to sit back and let you, it's uncertain, I think. So if you're holding me accountable, how are you going to hold me accountable? Are you going to do the same thing to me? I'm saying me, just people in general, but are you going to do the same thing to my people if we back down? So now I think it's like, it's an accountability issue. So it's not something they want to face. And then that begs the question is how do they face that? Like, I'm not sure. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just an accountability thing. It's a fear and accountability thing. We will be a weapon. Us together, united, is a threat to them. And that's the base of this all, I think.
Kiara, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, answered this a little bit the other day. I don't know if you guys watch sports, but I don't even watch sports. But when a city loses a championship or whatever, that city goes crazy. Like, I forget where it is, but basically they had riot the whole town after they lost, and nothing happened to them. But when we go and peaceful protest, you know, silently or chanting whatever we feel, not hurting anyone, we're looked at as violent. And I hate that so much.
And
I think that's what Bear is trying to say. Like, yeah, I think that's what Bear is trying to say. When they see us, we're smart, we're educated, we know what we want. And then as a human, just human race, like, we know right from wrong. Like, why is it because we're Black that we don't deserve a right, you know, a voice? And it's violent, it's not respect. It's not viewed as we should be respected, it's viewed as we're violent or ignorant, you know?
Yeah. I would just like to say, plainly stated, this country was built upon greed, and it was founded upon the idea of murdering Native Americans so that they could get this land. And so now that we're angry, several hundred years later, we're angry, we're destroying their businesses. When we start messing with white people's money, they get angry. And also, when you think about the coronavirus, they were protesting because they couldn't get their hair cut. They were mad that they couldn't go get their hair cut and they had to wear masks. Now we're protesting because our brothers and sisters are being killed and we're being called thugs by the president of the United States himself. As a church, young women, as a church, we can't be silent. The Bible itself says in Proverbs 31:8-9, open your mouths for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the poor and needy. My question is, what can we do as a church, as an organization? Abera, you talked about how we need to get organized and create strategy to fight this thing. As Seventh-day Adventist Christian Black women, what are some things that we can do to create change as a community of Seventh-day Adventists?
We can be like a ministry of, I want to say, basically like any sort that basically comes to mind. We could go out, we could give out flyers, we could, I want to say, like, create art. I don't know if anyone understands exactly what I'm saying by that, or we could even just use music, and hopefully that everyone could basically understand to portray the message that we're trying to get across.
Right, I like that.
I think we keep having conversations. I think that's important, and welcome other people to join the conversation, like we're doing now. But welcome other people to join the conversations and share their views and create a safe space for people to learn and change their mindset. So continuing having conversations, music, different things of that nature, being creative, I think will be important to push change.
Okay. Continuing to talk about it and to bring these things to the table. I love it.
And I think also unifying, not just in the Black community, but also in Caucasian community. I feel like sometimes it's easy for us to say like, oh, white's this, white's that. But we have to remember when it was like civil rights movement, stuff like that, there were people, white people, who stood up with the Black people. And it's not something that we can do by ourselves. You know what I mean? We can try, but we need all decent human beings to fight this race with us, you know, or else we're not going to win. So
yeah, and I think that's crucial. You know, this is not a fight for Blacks against whites. This is a fight for racists against everybody. And so I think that is the Christian mindset that we should have. You know, the Bible says there is no Jew nor Gentile nor rich nor poor. So God, he stands up for his people because he created us. He's not called us to be silent. So we're loving the discussions that we have here today. And in light of Father's Day coming tomorrow, what would you all like to say to simply acknowledge or encourage or uplift Black fathers as they are being profiled and targeted in America today? Any messages that you have for the fathers out there?
I would say,
I would like to say,
We all have to go ahead.
I got something to say, but I appreciate so much because Black men truly understand. I appreciate the Black men that are in tune with their emotions so they can, have those conversations with their children, because it's real, like growing up having a Black son and then Black men already being men in this society. I appreciate the Black men that are the front line of their household. And I just appreciate them understanding with their wives and their children, like, we are a team. This is a team. That's the only way it's going to work, if we can work together. And honestly, I want to say that it truly shows and it pours out into the communities when you come out of your house, like love. I just appreciate Black men just standing up and being there for their families, for sure.
Yes, we love it. We love it. Anybody else?
Basically, like Kiara just said, to just like continue to go out strong, keep your heads up, continue to do the work that you all continue to do, that you all like have that role to play with when it comes to the families, and as far as working and providing, continue to keep stuff like that up. Mm-hmm. I feel like eventually it'll all get better sooner or later.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Gabriel, Abera, you have anything to say before we close out?
I would say
that's Jesus calling it. Jesus.
Well, it is. It is. I would just say that, we are here for you, Black men. I think that's the most important message that I personally can portray. I'm lucky enough to have my Black father in my household, and I have that strong family unit. And like Kiara said, it pours into the community when that love is being poured into the family. That's why the family unit is so powerful. So showing Black men that we're here for them is important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with what she said. We have to spread love, you know what I mean? We have to be forgiving towards people. And one of the things I did want to mention before we close is the whole all lives matter. I know it's like kind of controversial, but I want to encourage people to not allow certain groups of people to be dismissive. You know what I mean? The All Lives Matter movement at its very core is very dismissive to what Black lives are going through. And I feel like, if there's a group of people and they're literally bleeding out in the street, that's what you should pay attention to. That's the one to add.
Well, that was beautiful. And, ultimately, as a church, we serve a God who is our Heavenly Father, who has said, I'll love you with an everlasting love, that I will never leave you, I'll never forsake you. And so we're experiencing this eternal, this love that we don't even understand from God. And God has called us to bear each other's burdens and love others as well. So we definitely are just so excited about the change that has been motivated by this unfortunate event. But we're going to keep going forward in hope and in love. So right now we want to turn the platform over to our pastor, who is also a father, Pastor Lee, to give us some remarks today on this topic of Black Lives Matter. So
I think he just joined.
Okay. So, I mean, we can still talk until he joins. Oh, there he is. Right on time. Right on time.
Right on time. Sorry about that. I had technical difficulties for a second. Yes, I appreciate this conversation so very much. It's been an absolutely rich conversation, and the perspectives that each one of these ladies have brought out has been absolutely powerful. Janelle, I mean, just the moderation, I mean, everything's been a good conversation. The only piece that I want to add to this is that piece from Frederick Douglass, where he makes mention of the fact that without struggle, there will be no progress. Without struggle, there will be no progress. We find ourselves for the last 400 years in struggle still, in struggle. And while it may seem as if the progress is slow, you know, we hear another word that says, you know, press together, press together, press together. And as a people, as a spiritual people, and as a people in general, we got to recognize that we're still in a struggle right now. But yet, as you all pointed out earlier, God is on our side. God is on our side. And with God, we are more than conquerors through Jesus Christ. That does not negate the fact, though, that as a people, we got to press together still. And we can continue to agitate. You know, I think sometimes we recognize, we may think that our protest and the things that we're doing is not making enough noise. It's not, you know, it's not doing anything at all. And I believe that that we are making some noise right now. I think almost for the first time in a long time, I'll say, you know, people are beginning to recognize and see the struggle, the plight of our people that we've been going through for years. For the first time, individuals are saying, man, I never knew it was this bad before. And I think that we now have an obligation to set that narrative straight. We have an obligation to be able to articulate and to be able to educate what's going on and what's been going on for years, and to be able to agitate the situation so that our brothers and sisters, especially our white brothers and sisters, can understand as well that they have a part to play. And in order for us to be able to continue to agitate, it's going to take all of us literally trying to agitate this thing together, our good white brothers and sisters as well, and others that will come together and will help us fight. Because here's the reality, everybody. Oppression, for one, is oppression for everybody. And we got to recognize that. And just because some of us, you know, yesterday was Juneteenth and we celebrated liberation and freedom, emancipation, all of that. I get that. But there are still brothers like G.M. James said that are in mental slavery. And mental slavery can be worse than physical slavery. So we got to free individuals. I want to suggest in the last 2 minutes or less that I have is that there are some action steps that we can take. Some action steps. Number one, we hear all the time, but it's true. We got to vote, y'all. We got to vote. Our brothers and sisters died for this right, this basic right to vote. We got to participate in the census because billions of dollars are being allocated, of course, to areas and around for the census. And then we got to exercise this right to vote. We got to put people in office who have our best interests in mind, who are appreciative of those who have been oppressed, depressed, and suppressed within our community. So we got to make sure we got to vote. We got to make sure that we're teaching entrepreneurship as well. Entrepreneurship, owning businesses. We got to support our own. It's amazing that a Black dollar only stays in our community for a length amount of time. But for other communities, that dollar circulates and goes over and over all over. We got to make sure that we are entrepreneurs in our mind and that we're supporting one another as well. The next action step that I would suggest as well would be that we have to provide education as well, provide education. You know, Booker T. Washington talked about that you can't bring a man down unless you're going down with them. We got to free ourselves in our minds and provide proper education, especially to a generation who is coming up right now who, man, they're going to need everything they can to be able to go forward because of the world that we're living in right now. So make sure we're educating ourselves. Make sure that, you know, all those things are critical. And then last but not least, we got to stand together. You know, there's more, but we got to stand together. We got people that I got mine, you go and get yours. That mindset, no, that mindset is of Satan. No, just because when I got mine, it's now my obligation to make sure that Kiara has hers. That Sierra, that Ibere, that all of these individuals that have theirs as well. And if they're lacking, it's our responsibility to step in and to help them because we're in this thing together. And I believe that when we have that kind of mindset of recognizing that we got to agitate, we got to pull our resources together, that we are stronger together than we are apart. then we'll be able to see some real change in our world. So let's keep on pressing together. Ladies, thank you all so very much. I want to say this before I turn it back over to Dr. Howe, to Janelle, and that is Monica Hetty has been behind the scenes. And I'm not sure if we have said that from last week to this week. I just wanted to throw out a quick shout out to Monica. Thank you, Monica, for pulling all of this together. Our AY leader, she's been working behind the scenes, and we acknowledge you and we appreciate the work that you're doing as well. I'm Pastor William Lee. I just wanted to shout you all out. Thank you all for the work that you're doing, and thank you for the conversation today as well. This conversation must continue. It cannot just be a conversation, but we got to continue toward action plans and action steps as well. Thank you very much.
I'm actually going to turn it right back to the pastor. We are done, y'all. This is the last quarter of the game. We thank you for tuning in. And again, yes, we thank Miss Monica for organizing this. Sierra, Kiara, Gabriel, and Barry, especially for your video. We appreciate your minds and your time for joining us tonight for the conversation. And we're just asking that you all will continue to follow and support the Shiloh SDA Church. You can donate online. We're not meeting in person, but thank God for technology. We're meeting virtually. And so, Pastor, would you just close us out in prayer as we close out the Sabbath?
No doubt, no doubt. Father in heaven, God, thank you so very much for this wonderful discussion, God. Lord, literally, the ball it's been rolling down the field right now. We have made some progress, but God, we ask for your spirits, continue guidance, because God, we know that we still have a ways to go. Lord, help us to press together, and as you even pray, God, to be one, so that others would be able to experience true freedom as it relates to our lives and as it relates to Jesus Christ and living for him as well. Lord, thank you for this conversation this afternoon, God. Thank you for every single individual that contributed, that challenged us and elevated our hearts and our minds, God. Continue to bless them. I pray that you'll fill them, oh God, with your spirit. And Lord, help even our discussion last week, the men, and now today, the women as well. Lord, help us all to come and just push the kingdom agenda and to come against the enemy himself, God. May we be on one accord from this day forward, Father, for we ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You all have a great evening.
You too.
Right.